With practice and qualifying in the books from Phoenix, Brian and I are here to get you set to attack the slate on DraftKings, as well as update the outright betting card and tell you everything you need to know, as Brian is coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. He will be at the race on Sunday. If you're going to be there, make sure you follow him on Twitter and throw him a message. I'm sure he would love to meet up. Appreciate everybody who's smashed the like, who's subscribed to the show, doing all the things. If you've yet to subscribe, please consider doing that. If you haven't subscribed to the newsletter to get the extra picks, to get the extra DraftKings
Must.
thoughts, please do that completely free. With that being said, let's dive into it.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, live from Phoenix, Arizona. I guess before we dive into DraftKings, how is the track? Any big takeaways from practice and qualifying before we go driver by driver, as we do each and every week? And as always, if you have questions that we do not answer, if you have specific thoughts that you want our feedback, drop them in the comments. We try and loop back between now and race day. We also are available on Twitter. Follow us there. Happy to answer
All
any
the time.
questions. But I guess any big takeaways, anything really jump out to you, anything that completely changed the way you're impacting and thinking about Sunday?
Yeah, first of all, I got to say Phoenix Raceway is awesome. The setup is really nice. It is much more open and spread out than Las Vegas. Like the walk from the parking, even the media parking, is about, I would say, about a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile to the media center. So it's pretty far away. But it's beautiful. The facilities are really nice. It's the food that we get is awesome, and the fact that I get all day coffee is literally heaven for me. Looking at practice and qualifying, I think it's really telling that you saw some substantial movement from what we saw in practice to the actual qualifying runs. I talked about this on Twitter where last year in the spring, only 3 of the top 10 fastest drivers in practice in terms of overall single lap speed actually qualified inside the top 10. And we saw a similar scenario this year where only 4 guys who posted top 10 single lap speeds in practice qualified inside the top 10. And, I think the takeaway from that is that guys like Joey Logano, for instance, he found something when he made a stop in practice, and he probably didn't make too many adjustments to mess with the long run speed that he found there to try to come out and trim it out as much to throw down a faster lap, because he only picked up about a 10th from his practice time. Whereas guys like Denny and all of them, even if they were at the top of the board already, they picked up, 2 to 3 tenths minimum from their fastest lap on Friday into Saturday. And then Kyle Larson, what the F is going on? Like, what are we doing with this number now? And, we talked about this earlier in the week. This is exactly why I slow played the outright market. I had no interest in betting those numbers. I mean, especially when he opened at, what was he, 5 or 5.5 to 1? And we hadn't seen the short track package. And he himself had admitted that he forgot what it was like to run the package during testing. So, I think this is a cautionary tale for people getting too excited based on recency bias and past histories here, because even Ryan Blaney, who's been incredible on this track, he doesn't qualify inside the top 10, and he wasn't anywhere near the top of the board in terms of practice splits. Ross Chastain, he was decent on the longer runs, but short runs, his car was nowhere to be found. So, I think we're going to have an interesting time diving into this DFS stuff, and especially looking at the outright market now, because this is the first race of the year, and this might be the only time of the year where we see this many guys inside that 10 to 1 range to win the race.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the time when we talk on Tuesday or Wednesday, it's always to take a look at where is the value? What number now that we're looking at betting when we regroup on Saturday night is gone? Like, it's not going to be cut in half, cut in a quarter. That's where we're usually getting aggressive. That's where we're trying to find value. And we were simpatico. Like Ryan Blaney was interesting, Kyle Larson, Byron, and Ross Chastain, but they're all so short that, like, if anything crazy happened, the odds of them getting even shorter was really, really low. Where we'll flip over and talk it towards the end, but Chris Bell, massive shift in his outright number. If you got in
The
on
one
him,
thing I will say, like, I talked about this, like, admittedly, it kind of sucks not holding a 12-1 ticket like a lot of people were advocating for early in the week. However, I still feel confident in holding a 7.5-1 number on Christopher Bell after that practice session on Friday, regardless of what he did in qualifying. Like, to me, he has the best car on the long run, and I don't think that it was particularly close. And I don't think that qualifying is going to change my opinion of that. And it clearly did not change the sportsbook's opinions when we go and we look at that towards the end of this.
Yeah, and if you're trying to get down on a couple guys that you think you want action on at longer numbers, grabbing, even if it's a half bet just to grab it, like, that makes sense. But if you're more comfortable, like Brian's saying, being patient, and even if you're betting instead of 12, you're betting 7 or 8 or 6, like, you'd rather bet it at that and know that he has a rocket ship than bet it at 12 and then he ends up going to 14, 16, 18. So it's all about mentality. It's all about, kind of how you want to attack the board. But, I'm definitely in the mode of think about where you could potentially find value. What guys listed from basically 12 to 25 could be inside 10-1 when we talk. And that's where you want to grab if you want to get some potential, CLV, and then obviously you figure it out from there. But yeah, I mean, I was very patient, especially given my history. Like, I only have I had 3 poll bets, and now I have 3 bets for Sunday's race, and we can talk about kind of where those are now and what we want to do there. But as you mentioned, we're here to talk some DraftKings. So let's dive into it. I will present my screen. We will go driver by driver. We'll talk about what we saw in practice and in qualifying. The drivers that jump out the most, that seem the most interesting at their current price. And then we'll build some lineups at the end. And I will actually remember to put them in contest this time instead of building more on Sunday morning and forgetting for some reason. So we'll start at the top of the board, basically 10-1 or 10,000 and shorter. So or longer. I don't know, higher. I don't know. My brain's not working.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson starting 17th, 11.5. Ryan Blaney starting 16th at 11.2. Both are going to be compelling options. Byron starting 5th at 11. Denny Hamlin puts it on the pole at 10.5. Christopher Bell starting 13th, but as you mentioned, is a total rocket ship at 10K.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll be able to do it as we'll trickle through the prices. We can see if it's a potential, but like, it would be really fun to start Bell Blaney, Bell Larson, maybe even Hamlin Bell. I don't know, something. But I guess what are your thoughts on this range, and who is the most compelling options?
Look, I think the first and most important thing here when we're talking about Phoenix, and in particularly a short track, you need to get a dominator. And at this track, there's probably going to be 2 guys that lead a shit ton of laps. I went back and I just looked at the next gen stuff real fast, and I think the least amount of laps that the pole sitter has led here is something like 97 in the 4 races since the next gen car. So, you can poo-poo Denny Hamlin all you want, but the fact that he has track position and hearing, the rhetoric coming out of the garage as that driving in traffic is really hard, passing is as difficult as it was in the previous package. Like, if Hamlin can somehow get to a lead here early on, he's probably going to lead 60 plus laps at minimum. Yeah. And so, you might be putting yourself in a immediate hole if you don't have that. And he does wind up performing like he has here in the past. Like, yes, he struggled in the next gen car, but prior to that, Hamlin was good here. He's got a win here. Just a few years ago, he was consistently running inside the top 5. He himself said they basically threw the toolbox at this car ahead of this weekend and made like drastic changes to the way that they came into the weekend. So he's not driving the same setup that he has in the previous couple of seasons. So I expect a completely different performance out of him. And then when you look at guys like Larson and Blaney, our friend iFantasy Race tweeted out earlier today, it's something like 13 consecutive winners had won from starting 13th or better And these guys do not fit in there starting 16th and 17th. And as a matter of fact, I went back and I went even further. I believe there's only been 2 instances that somebody won a race here in Phoenix over the last 20 that started worse than 13th. So, I mean, they have a massive mountain to climb in order to get to the front and win this race. But if anybody's going to do it, I would not put it past Larson or Blaney. But knowing those facts and that they're probably going to garner, 35%, close to 40% rostership, I'm almost like an immediate avoid on them. Especially knowing that the guys starting in front of them, Byron, Hamlin, Bell, Truex, even going down a couple of more rings here. We'll get to my favorite, but they all have potentially better cars or equal cars.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really, really good points. There is some guys as we trickle through the pricing that if you want to get weird at it as a potential early dominator, you can get weird. But yeah, I think your head is in the right way. I think that is very interesting. Kind of what you just outlined in terms of potential race winners, and the fact that it cuts off at lucky number 13, and one car happens to be sitting in that starting grid spot is very, very interesting. Let's keep it trucking. Let's keep rolling through the rest of and we'll talk 9Ks. Actually, we'll do 9 and 8 because there's only 3 drivers. So we have Logano 23rd, Kyle Busch 31st, Ross Chastain is 12th, is a 9K, and then let's just cut it off there because I think I have some a different discussion for the next range. So Logano 23rd, Kyle Busch 31st, Ross Chastain 12th. Those are the only cars in the 9K range. Do you have interest in any of them?
It's watermelon season in the desert. Okay.
Who knew watermelons could grow in the desert?
Yeah.
I guess Truex too. I forgot about him. 9,800. My bad.
Yeah, look, I will be the first to admit I completely screwed the pooch by betting Truex top Toyota plus 350 early in the week. Like that number has skyrocketed double its value. So I messed up there. I still think he's going to have a strong run. I like him for a top 10 this week still because you could probably get close to even money based on practice. My favorite DFS play this week, look, I'm going to say it right off the bat, Ross Chastain. I added him on an outright because you can get him close to 10-1 in some markets. To me, which is absurd, knowing that he wasn't going to qualify well here. He doesn't qualify great. That is not what his plan is. He said it multiple weeks ago when he mentioned that they want to come in with a better handling car than they do overall speed. So this was expected by him. And you saw that late in runs, that as he got further and further into his runs in practice, his fall off actually started to diminish in between 5-lap segments. So for me, I think Ross Chastain, if anybody is going to move up through the field and get to the front from this section, it is just as likely as Christopher Bell.
Question for you as it came across my mind. Brian Murphy was on the NASCAR betting preview show on Wednesday talking about the new package, and his expectations were it really wasn't going to make that big of a difference. It's going to be a very, very minor thing.
He was dead on, by the way.
After practice and qualifying, is that what the drivers are saying? Is that the kind of the general discourse coming out of most of the garages?
I think the most diminishing type of comment that you could have heard if you were NASCAR was the fact that when Chase Elliott was asked about the new short track package in the media center, he said, "I forgot that we even made a change during practice." Basically telling you it felt exactly the same to him.
Car
that
still
there was
handles
no
the
difference.
same.
Yeah, that there was no difference. And then Tyler Reddick, he said it was exponentially worse in traffic.
Oh, that's interesting. But that is good to know as we're building lineups, as we're thinking about outrights. The guys that are traditionally good here should probably still be good here. You don't want to.
You just said exactly what Chase said.
Yeah.
Chase Elliott ended his little meetup by saying, "Look, the guys who are good in Phoenix are going to be good here no matter what changes they make to the short track package."
And who won in the fall last year? In the race where the top 4 cars even have a little bit of a boost?
Yeah, exactly. Watermelon Man.
Yeah. So I like where your head's at. Do we talked about Logano before, like prior to practice and qualifying, as him
Mhm.
being kind of interesting as somebody who traditionally does pretty well in Phoenix. Someone we're a little excited about. Starting 23rd, are you pessimistic given what we saw from Blaney and some of the Fords in general? Or do you still have some confidence knowing he's a driver who's traditionally done well here? As we just mentioned, we're not expecting a ton from the new package for short tracks, and kind of just overall, kind of where we were beginning of the week. Are you still there, or have you got a little more pessimism?
Yeah, it's interesting because this week in DFS, I actually prefer Logano to Blaney because you're getting the like seven starting spots and you're saving $1,000. Because I think that Logano was actually a little bit better in terms of his long run speed during practice because when he first went out, when they first unloaded the cars onto the track, he wasn't very good. And then they came in, they made a change like everybody was doing. They got new tires, they made some setup adjustment, and he found the speed. And I think, like I had mentioned at the top of the show, I think that's why you didn't see him back up that speed into qualifying, probably because he told them, like, look, I don't want to move off of this
What we
particular
have.
type, whatever thing, and ruin what we found in terms of long run speed just to find, a better qualifying position.
Yeah, because I mean,
So
in the cool thing too is with the shorter track, there's a lot more lap sleds. There's a lot more information, a lot more data.
exactly.
Logano went sixth in 5 lap average, then fourth, then second in 15, and then second in 20. And normally, when we talk 15 and 20, maybe there's a handful of cars that are still out there running that many laps trying to figure
Yep.
something out.
Yep.
But here, we had 18 cars run 20 laps. We had 30 cars run 15 laps. So they're, being that good and improving that much is actually, I think, a little more meaningful than maybe when you're second out of 4 or 5 cars at some of the other tracks we run.
Yeah, and I think for DFS purposes too, like the one thing you're sacrificing with somebody like Logano at 9,500 is going back to the trend of guys not winning from outside the top 13. And then the fact that he's probably not going to lead a bunch of laps. So you'd be surrendering those potential dominator points. But in terms of somebody threatening a top 5 and probably finishing inside the top 10, I wouldn't call it a sure thing because there's no such thing in stock car racing. But I mean, the expectation would be Joey Logano is going to get a top 10. So I mean, you're looking at least 13 placement points at minimum. And then the fact of if it gets wild at the end of the race, like we saw freaking Justin Allgaier blow a tire with 4 to go, like who is better than Joey in manufacturing track position by making weird calls on pit road or just
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
And he's elite at making it stick, where a lot of guys can manufacture track position, but then they end up sinking like a rock. Logano is one of those guys that if he can get his car where it needs to be, it's there. It's not moving. He may not win the race, but he may get fourth instead of 24th, and then you're loving life. So, and
Yep.
from what I'm looking at in terms of projections, it seems like his roster percentage is going to be pretty low. So
Yeah,
Logano
I'm
could
telling
be
you, it's
a nice pivot.
yeah. Yeah, because people are buying it's the same thing that I tweeted out earlier today when I mentioned like I might bet Larson at 10-1 just out of principle. Because we're never going to see that number for the rest of
Yeah.
the year. I can only imagine like that number will never come around again.
No.
Now, if I'm thinking like that for the outright market, imagine the people in DFS who see Kyle Larson starting 17th at a track that he was the race favorite entering the week. They're like, oh shit, I have to put him in my lineup.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. Let's talk about the rest of the range. I mean, I guess we covered most of it, but let's dive into the 8Ks because that's where I want to go. Chase Elliott, the guy you talked about, 8,800, looked good, looked real good. Put it
Flying under the
third.
radar.
Could this be his bounce back week? This is a track where he's done well. This might be an interesting spot. We'll have to look at what his outright number is. He's a guy that if he looks like he might be good, tends to move a little faster than maybe I'm a little more uncomfortable with, but he is definitely a compelling option. And then we talk Tyler Reddick starting 6th, another guy that people were kind of optimistic about heading into the week. And this looks like he might be all right. Chris Buescher starting 14th, Keselowski 18th, and Tyrone Gibbs starting 2nd. I mentioned if you wanted to get weird with a potential early dominator, you could, as you trickle down the board, Tyrone Gibbs, potential early dominator.
I have zero interest in putting Gibbs in. I don't trust him at this type of track. Like, especially seeing in qualifying the handful of guys that got loose, or just the amount of times that people got squirrely because they were going onto the flat surface and cutting the dog leg. You know, knowing that track position is as important as it is here. I had asked Denny about whether or not he thinks tires and track position are more important this weekend than they have been in the past. And he said, yes. Like, you might see some people on differing tire strategies this weekend just to maintain track position because it is difficult to pass. And to me, that just presents opportunity for more chaos going into the dog leg on restart. So somebody like Gibbs, who, it's only his second year in the Cup Series, like, he's fantastic, but this is not Las Vegas where you're not going to be up beside somebody and somebody's not going to be on your bumper because it's going to get spread out. So I have no interest there. Chase Elliott.
So Gibbs was 14th in 5 lap, 22nd in 10 lap, and 21st in 15 laps. So he'd fall off and he wasn't good. The other quote, the other nugget from Brian Murphy of RFK that I took away is young drivers, newer drivers, guys that don't have a ton of experience tend to not do as well here. This is one of those tracks where the more you run it, the better you feel, the easier it is.
Tire management.
Yeah. Just having an understanding of what to do on the track. So think about that as you're thinking about, bets, as you're thinking about lineups. If you're between, a younger driver and even like a Josh Berry, who's technically a rookie, I think he's a lot more of a compelling option because of his experience, because of the amount of times he's run it in the Xfinity and knows what to do out on the track. But yeah, talk to me about Chase Elliott.
Yeah, look, last year, Kyle, he should have trademarked the moniker Ace Average Ass Chase Elliott. This is not coming from the Brian that has over 1.5 wins from Chase Elliott. This is coming from an objective point of view. Chase Elliott's good this weekend. Like, his car unloaded really well, and he does have success here in the past. And, we're talking about an HMS car. So I think you might save on roster percentage here. Like, if you wanted to just avoid Denny and potentially look at somebody that's starting up near the front that could maybe jump to the front and lead a bunch of laps, I think he might be the guy that is the ultimate pivot play.
Yeah, and Elliott went 25th in 5 lap, 15th in 10 lap, and then 8th in 15 lap. So got better, figured some stuff out. It might have taken him I don't know what's going on. Maybe I don't know if he's like evolved into a guy that really needs his car to show up in order to be good on Sundays. Especially now that he's he's basically the third car in the garage, in the Hendrick garage, which is wild to think about given where we were going into the last season. But yeah, the way obviously Larson's dominance and then Byron figuring everything out. And so yeah, it's kind of wild, but yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely interesting. I think he'll be a little less popular than I think even his name's like, he obviously is going to garner a ton of attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Chase Elliott, but I could see people fading him. Any interest in the RFK guys, or should we dive into the 7Ks?
I don't think their cars are strong enough to compete inside the top 5. And because of where they're starting, I'd have a hard time getting to them because I really don't see very many fastest laps coming from either of them. And I don't see them getting to the front and leading a bunch of laps unless it's, because of a caution during a pit cycle or something of that nature where they wind up leading maybe 15, 20 laps.
Let's talk 7K. We have Chase Briscoe. Our Briscoe and McDowell pole bets had life. We got to the final 10.
Dang it.
But didn't quite have the goods. Briscoe starting 8th, Bubba starting 22nd, Alex Bowman starting 25th, Daniel Suarez starting 15th, Josh Berry starting 36th, and Eric Jones starting 4th. I mean, in terms of fastest in 5 lap, dropped off to 5th in 10 lap, and 6th in 15. Obviously fell off a little bit, but not a ton. And given the guys that like Chase Elliott and the another name in this range, Bubba Wallace, and Joey Logano, aforementioned, we're kind of jumping in front of him. Those are talented drivers. So I guess Eric Jones is he an automatic write-off given where he's starting in a Toyota? Or and if so, I guess, are you going to Bubba? Are you interested in anybody else in this range?
Yeah, I'm not playing Eric Jones. Good luck to anybody that wants to go there, but he's got to prove it first. Now, Bubba, on the other hand, he had a good car in practice. He just got squirrely on his qualifying lap, which is why he's starting 22nd. So you can't look at that and say, oh, his car is not very good, apparently. I think his car's fine. If he can keep it on track and with the progression that we've seen out of him, I think a top 10 is definitely in play for him. So, 7,700, looking at 12 placement points, and then maybe a couple of laps led if we get on some weird pit strategy of that, kind of what I refer to with the RFK guys. I would much rather save the salary and go to Wallace, who's actually starting 4 to 6 spots below the RFK guys that probably has a better car.
Yeah, we saw what the Toyotas can do. We saw him being awesome. We saw what Denny did, what Chris Bell did. So, obviously there's optimism about the Toyotas kind of in general. So I'm with you. I like Bubba a lot. Briscoe's still interesting. He's a little farther ahead in terms of a DraftKings play than maybe I really want to get to. But
he's good here too.
He's really good here. And he will not be popular. So if you want to find, if you are in this range and you're like, I just need someone to be different, I need someone who can be strong all day, I think he could be an interesting option. I also think Josh Berry is interesting. He's a back marker, so it's a little concerning.
He might be extremely chalky, though.
He's sub 10% given where he's in the range he's in. Like if he was 5,900 and sub 10%, I would feel like, okay, maybe he'll be popular among back markers, but at 7,200, I think he could be interesting. But he also isn't super duper cheap either. And I worry that with a shorter track that he gets lapped early and it's kind of a struggle for him to maintain lead lap.
Yeah. And that's kind of why. So I'm glad you dove into him. We could just transition into the 6K guys because I think his teammate Ryan Preece, who's starting 27th and is a couple $100 cheaper, in my opinion, I believe he's a better play than Josh Berry because he already has that built-in 9 positions to avoid being lapped early on, and he's good here too. He's got decent success on these short tracks, and his car was actually better than Josh Berry's during practice.
Yeah, and he figured some stuff out. Even ran his total 20 laps, but yeah, both SHR cars were not great. So that is interesting. The rest of the 6K range: Austin Dillon, Michael McDowell, Noah Gragson, John Hunter, Ricky Stenhouse, Corey LaJoy, Austin Spindrick, and Carson Hocevar. A bevy of variety of names, starting positions, a lot of gross options. Anything jumping out to you in this range that you're like, you know what, I could squint and see it working. I could squint and find somebody in my lineup. Is there somebody as you look to kind of find some name kind of popping out that you're like, I think that could work?
I I mean, I can't get to Gragson starting 7th or Hocevar starting 10th. Like, kudos to them for grabbing top 10 starting positions. But going back to the Ty Gibbs discussion and then what Brian Murphy from RFK had said earlier in the week on the NASCAR betting preview show, young guys are on the struggle bus here at this track in the Cup Series. So, they're a complete avoid. I have zero optimism about Corey LaJoie or Ricky Spinhouse at this track, leaving only Austin Cindric. But the fact that you're hoping for, a top 20 out of him when he could just as easily just be absolute dog crap and run outside the top 25, and you wasted $6,200 on a guy who barely made any placements and didn't get any fastest laps, didn't get any laps led. I would almost rather just go down to the 5K and just put in a filler and eat the salary to go to the top of the board. Like, I feel like this is going to be an extremely chalky, extremely expensive roster that you have to build to win here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of looking at the rest of the guys, as you mentioned, going into the 5K: Gilliland, Zane Smith, Daniel Hemrick, Harrison Burton, Justin Haley, Derek Kraus, Kaz Gralla.
I would rather pay $5,200 for Justin Haley in a RWR car, just knowing that he's been in the Cup Series for a decent amount of time. And I mean, between him and Austin Cindric, I know Austin Cindric won the Daytona 500, but who's better? They're probably on level ground at this moment in terms of their driving. I mean, obviously Cindric is in a way better car, but do you have any more confidence in Austin Cindric to make placements than you do Justin Haley? No.
Cindric was great in 5 lap, and then he was falling off at 10. Then he got more at 15, and by 20,
he was destroying his tires. So
if we have a 3-lap race, I'd love Austin Cindric. But if it's going to be a full race, I'm not interested. Which, talking about basically sub 7K. We talked about potentially grabbing 2 of the, expensive guys and figuring it out. It might be a balanced build week, and I don't usually love that, but it might be the way to go just to kind of avoid the nonsense. So with that being said, let's build a lineup and
let's do it
and talk about it. Is there a name that you like? First name in has to be
Ross Chastain. Chastain.
Okay, Ross Chastain.
I feel the same about Chastain this week as I did Tyler Reddick last week. That's just the feeling that I'm getting from what he did in practice. He did not disappoint whatsoever in qualifying. And I can tell that he is right. I mean, the dude should have 3 consecutive top 5 finishes or thereabouts to begin this season, and possibly 2 wins on the year already. If it wasn't for pit road mistakes.
I'm going to go Chris Bell. We talked about how good he was, how excited we are about him. Push us into that direction, and then we can make decisions from there. So we're looking about $77.50 per driver.
All right, we're going to have to eat it because we need an early dominator. We are getting average-ass Chase Elliott in this lineup.
Okay.
You got to have somebody starting up near the front in this race, at least in my opinion.
Do we want to double up HMS with Alex Bowman? Bowman was fine. I don't usually he's not incredible at Phoenix.
Yeah,
he should be solid. Or should we keep diving? And I mean, McDowell, I don't hate, but he did have some noticeable fall off.
He ran okay here last year.
Greg, Corey LaJoie.
No, hell no.
Let's see.
Look, okay, let's put our money where my mouth is and put Justin Haley into this lineup.
Gross.
Just don't kill us, Justin.
The worst card, 5 and 10. God, Justin Haley's so bad. We can't do that. A Rick Ware car?
All
Actually,
right, all right.
Rick Ware car that looked like shit. I mean, not that I have a better solution. Let me see here. Gross.
Yeah, this is a tough week. I'm telling you, because you have to get. This is the week where you can't mess around. Like you need expensive guys in your lineup.
And I feel like last week, like there was a lot of really good scores where you need to put up a big number. I'm not sure that this is the week.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. Somebody's going to hit the jackpot on some weird random lineup.
What about Suarez?
What is Ryan Preece?
Oh, Preece, 69.
Yeah.
What about Suarez?
He's all right.
If are we thinking it's less about Trackhouse and more about Ross Chastain just being a rock star?
Well, so I think with Suarez, the conversation is what is his ceiling? Like, do you expect him to compete for a top 5?
No.
And if not, I don't think you can play him because
Do
then
we
you're
want to
looking
risk
at
it with the
single digit
biscuit
placement points
of Josh Berry?
I don't hate that. I mean, going back to the Justin Haley thing, like
He was bad too.
Yeah, but he has a decent history here. Like, if anybody's gonna be able to manage his tires, he can at least get.
And Briscoe figured some stuff out, so maybe they can steal from that. Let's see what that.
He should be starting much further ahead than he was. It was only because he got loose after hitting the apron during his qualifying run that he started.
And
in the back.
we could get a few cars to the back tomorrow, so maybe he's not the last car, but we'll see.
True.
But that gets us up to 8,100, so we can look at Gibbs if we want to go second dominator. We could do the Briscoe thing. We could do Bubba if we want to stay with the Toyotas.
I think we do Bubba here, and then we build a second lineup.
Okay. God, it does not feel good. I hate weeks where it doesn't. Although the weeks where it doesn't feel good and it's not super easy is sometimes the best ones. All right, so we don't necessarily have to go different, but we could.
Yeah, I think we go a little bit different direction for sure. So I think we need to start. Oh gosh.
We both talked about our optimism for him. He's not going to win, but I think he could put it near the front and be there at the end of the day.
Gross. All right.
And I'm willing to be flexible if we end up pushing our lineup and there's somebody else that makes more sense.
No,
but I'm just going to start there and see where it goes.
I don't hate that. Like I like him. I just think that because of where he's starting, like we need somebody starting at the front that's going to lead laps immediately. So I think that would be a Denny or an Elliott or, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's Denny, but then you're putting yourself at some pretty significant salary cap restraints.
That's fine. Well, let's try one thing. Let's start with Denny. And let's go down here to this like 7-8K range and see where it gets us. And we could do the Bubba thing again if we want to stay in the Toyota garage.
I don't want to have, if we're building only Bubba. 2 lineups, I do not want Bubba in both. I mean, Austin Dillon was trash, but he's
interesting.
He's not a back marker.
And he's sub 7K. Like he's somebody that I'm sort of interested in. McDowell, I could talk myself into. I don't hate the Priest. We could try Eric Jones as a second, especially if we're doing the Toyota thing, and that might allow us to get to Bubba or get to another Toyota. I don't want to do Stenhouse. I don't want to do Cindric. I don't want to do LaJoy.
I mean, if we want to get different, Jones is a great play. Especially because I don't see anybody getting in on that. I will say, out of the next like people that we could actually afford, I would say that Tyler Reddick would be somebody that piques my interest, but I don't really want 3 guys starting inside the top 6, you know?
That's exactly where my head went.
Yeah.
Um,
Really
so
interesting too. I just wanted to mention. So as you were scrolling through there, you see Kyle Busch is starting 31st, and he's like 9,200. Why would you pay up for that when you have Austin Dillon, who's in the same exact car? It's not as good as a driver, but you're saving freaking $2,400 or $2,300, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Because Kyle Busch is not competing for a win. No, I highly doubt it.
No, but if RCR nails the setup,
Yeah, but we saw this last year. Like there was a lot of times where they look like shit in practice and qualifying, and then they look like shit on Sunday too.
Yeah, very, very fair. We haven't talked. I guess they're super expensive, but like we're just gonna skip Larson and Byron this week. Is that our game plan? That feels terrifying.
I know, but that's the thing is like
It's probably the move, but like
this might be the case where Larson is this week only. I mean, blue light special. Kyle Larson is suffering from the Chase Elliott stigma of last year, where everybody felt like they had to bet Chase Elliott at the end of the season on outright numbers that were longer than 10-1 because he's Chase Elliott. And this week, I feel like that's the same thing that people are thinking on Kyle Larson. It's Phoenix. It's Kyle Larson. And, you know, he wasn't that great. Like, I have a little bit of action on him at that 10-1 number, but that's just because he's Kyle Larson. Like we're talking about that, but I don't have confidence that that's going to happen. There are so many other guys that look just as good, if not better.
Yeah. Let me look at.
I mean, if we're going to go to the top of the board, it would be Ryan Blaney because there's been nobody as good as him at Phoenix.
Yeah. So
yeah, this is a tough week, man.
Yeah.
Okay, what if you put Logano in now?
Oh yeah, no, we can definitely get to him. It's just a matter of figuring out if we want like 2 guys that are kind of like 7-8K range, or if we want to pinch pennies at the top, or pinch pennies to get somebody else at the top. I'm trying to look for top 20s, someone that could actually make sense. I mean, part of me is like Gregson because of what
starting 10th or 7th.
Yeah, you're right. God damn it! I wish he was starting 27th. I'd be in on him.
I was just gonna say that's terrifying.
I think Bowman.
All right, let's go.
25th, 7,500. That gives us 9,100 left.
This is probably going to be a winning lineup, by the way.
I think then we.
No, because we couldn't go back to we couldn't have again. We'd have 3 of the top 4 starters. That ain't working out.
I would say if we want to. No.
I wouldn't hate that.
Bubba and Bell.
Bell here.
My only other thought is if we do. I was going to say Byron, but he's starting 5th, and we're doing the double Toyota early thing.
You'd have to get rid of Jones, and we'd have to pick somebody else.
Yeah, and I don't know that I necessarily want to do that unless Priest. I mean, we could do Chastain again, 9K, and then
I love Chastain this week.
And then, but that leaves us with like Kyle Busch. Or we could do.
You keep going back to Daniel Suarez. So why don't we play a lineup with Suarez?
Okay.
Again, we're talking about like I don't love it, but maybe that's the. Damn. Oh man.
How do you feel about that?
I don't hate it. I can tell you that. I do not hate that.
We could do this too, if you prefer that.
I mean, that pivots off of having Elliott twice.
Mm-hmm.
And now the only guy we're extra exposed to is Watermelon Man, which probably means we're going to get a rotten one. Yeah, let's do it. Let's
But
roll it.
Reddick could win, Hamlin could win, Chastain could win, and then the other three
Bowman could. If Bowman pops, and he's been known to luck into victories, if you ask somebody else we have in our lineup, Mr. Denny Hamlin, and he's a hack. So yeah, no, I think we have legitimate 3 potential race winners, and then Bowman and Suarez, who are kind of like on the fence, on the outside.
Yeah, if we get like top 5 to 8 days out of both of those guys, I think we'll be really, really happy.
Yeah.
Save that lineup. I will enter this in a contest, I promise. Let's go look at the outright board over it. What's that?
Let's just hope you stick true to your word and don't forget.
Yeah, if I'm asleep at the wheel 2 weeks in a row, then I don't know what to tell you. Things have gotten askew. Let's talk outright. Denny Hamlin, 475. Christopher Bell, 525. Ross Chastain, 850, which I think is really interesting given it's not like he pulled it. It's not like he was incredible in any sort of, in terms of his qualifying position, even in terms of practice, like he was solid and got really, really good as the, kind of run went along. And I think that's what books are seeing. As you mentioned, Larson's now 9-1, Reddick's 9-1, Byron and Blaney are 10-1. I'll cut it off there. We have lots of opportunity. We were very diligent. I will say I have Briscoe at 30-1, and that is my only outright currently. And Brian has no outrights, so we have lots of room on the.
I was just going to say, not for the show purposes, because if you follow me on Twitter, which you should be doing, and following the Angle of Pursuit Twitter page at FBAOP, and of course Kyle. I tweeted out last night, I added Christopher Bell plus 750. Like that to me was absurd that they laid that line after the practice that he put down. But looking at the numbers as they sit right now, the only one of these, like the 10-1 and shorter, that I would really want to consider and get action on would be Watermelon Man. Like, I actually added him at 10-1, and he's still available at 10-1 at BetRivers. And then I also believe at Superbook, you could still get him for that number. Yeah, 10-1 at Superbook. Of the 10-1 guys, even with Larson and Blaney and Reddick and Byron, like I'm all in on Watermelon Man this weekend.
Am I a donkey for going to Byron? Obviously won here last year.
Absolutely not. If anybody is going to quietly steal this, it's him.
Didn't have the qualifying. Like, he qualified well, didn't have the practice, but maybe that's, I don't know. None of the HMS guys really nailed their setup. Larson got much better.
Yeah.
I'm real tempted just to go Byron Larson at big numbers and hope that I'm right. Because at this point, and in fact, that's what I'm going to do.
I don't blame anybody for going to the well with that. Like, HMS has been incredible. Both of those guys have been really good. Byron is awesome here. I mean, he won here last year. You know, that said, it was Kyle Larson who was the dominant car that day.
Yeah.
I think Larson led like over 200 laps that race, and he finished 4th.
I'm assuming 9 and 10 are the best numbers I can get in market currently.
Let me see here. So Larson is 10 at Superbook.
Okay, I will do that.
And so is Byron. Actually, Byron's best number right now, if you are on the 24, like obviously you guys are watching this Sunday morning, this number's probably gone. He's 11-1 at BetRivers as we're recording this Saturday night.
Fire him up. I will take that. All right, I will add both of those. Are you? So you added Chastain. at 10 at Superbook, you would bet him down to what, 8? 8.5?
I don't mind betting him down at 8. Like, to me, because of where he's starting, the stat that I threw out at the beginning of the show that we got from our buddy Ryan at iFantasy Race, like the 13 consecutive winners inside the top 13, there's where they started or something of that nature. And he's starting right there. He's starting 12th.
I shouldn't bet Kyle Larson, but
that's like, I mean, I am a sucker for data and stats sometimes, and I feel like that's why I'm a little scared off of the Larson number, is because of where he's starting, and it's kind of similar to Blaney. Like, they have so much ground to make up. Like, it's going to be a tough sled of a day for them.
do we bet Chase Elliott instead of Kyle Larson?
See, and that's dude. I've been having this argument with myself. Once the numbers first dropped, I was like, man.
I looked at myself and I said, self, are we betting Chase Elliott?
Yeah, I was like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, or do I just want to sit on my over 1.5 wins and just avoid betting him on an outright? So that way I don't have to actually cheer for him. I could just be happy when he gets wins. I don't hate the number, and I don't mind betting him either because he was good.
As somebody who bet over 2.5 wins, holy shit. Let me see. I'm gonna confirm something. I might be adding an even better number. Oh, yeah, that's wrong. I was looking at an aggregator and it was suggesting that William Byron was 14. No, yeah, he's not posted at all. DraftKings isn't posted. Shout out action.
DraftKings is slow playing the odds tonight.
Yeah, shocker. No, yeah, 11.
So frustrating.
What is the best? Yeah, 15 at Caesars is the best number you can get on Elliott. Let us know down in the comments. 15 on Elliott or 9 on Larson. Which one are you betting? Or even 10 at Bet Rivers.
I'm doing it.
What?
Chase
You're
Elliott.
betting the average ass?
I am betting ace.
Oh my goodness! All right, I'm gonna let you ride that by yourself. I'm not gonna take down your mojo. Logano is still 13, which is kind of interesting. When you could bet Blaney at 10, although, yeah, I think I'd rather do that.
Yeah. I think I don't know if he's got it again. We talked about this last week in Vegas, and you heard everybody on the NASCAR betting preview show, Full Tank with Phil, hit the nail on the head with him. Like, he is a 5th through 10th place car, and I believe he finished 6th or 7th or something of that nature in Vegas. Like, that's kind of where I expect him to run. He has taken the mantle from Kevin Harvick in terms of being really good, just not good enough to win right now, at least.
All right, so you added Chastain, you added Chase Elliott. Are you adding anything else?
If Denny was like 7, I would bet that. But I'm not betting him at 5, knowing that the pole sitter hasn't won here in forever and front row car hasn't won here in forever. Like, there's just too much that could go wrong with him.
It's so crazy, too, because I was really excited about Ross, and he was kind of like the 4th guy, and I almost bet him at 10. And now that he's like the most expensive guy of the Ross, Larson, Byron, and Blaney group, I'm not
scared off.
I'm such a number better. It's ridiculous.
So that's something that, I was thinking about as I was sitting in the media center, how ridiculous the odds were post qualifying, that Ross Chastain saw very limited movement, and he was top 4 car in practice, in my opinion. And then he did exactly what we thought he was going to do in qualifying.
Yeah.
Like that.
Adding anything else?
No, outrights, I'm not going any further down from the top guys.
I think I'm good there.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the thoroughbreds that wins.
All right. Well, that will do it for the show. That's not working for some reason. We'll just do that. As I mentioned, if you want more bets, you want our final betting card, make sure you check out our Substack, AOPpodcast.substack.com. I'll put the link in the description. It's completely free. If you subscribe, it'll get emailed to your inbox every race day, which is very cool. You can obviously check it out for a week or two, read through it, see if you like it, see if it's for you. But it is something like Brian and I just give you some more thoughts, give you some more opinions, our favorite DraftKings plays. And we do that each and every week. So it's just kind of an added bonus for all of the people that are watching, subscribing, all that good stuff. If you are enjoying the pod, if you are getting benefits, please consider subscribing. Once again, completely free to you, does a lot for us. Smash that thumbs up. Let us know down in the comments, who are you betting? Are you in on Elliott or Larson? If you have any DraftKings questions, you can leave them down there. As I mentioned, you can add us on Twitter as well if you have a Twitter. If you can't make it to YouTube, we are on Spotify, so you can always check that out. I believe that's everything I have for today.
Don't forget to join the Grid Rival contest.
Yeah, you can still join that. You get the lowest score, and you can still climb your way out of there.
Yep.
Appreciate all the views, all the subscriptions. Like, you guys have been amazing this season. Very excited. If we can get to 1,000 subs by the All-Star break, which didn't seem that doable until recently, but now it seems very doable. Brian and I will set up a giveaway of some sort. So
for sure,
make sure if you can get us to 1,000, we will definitely do that by the time we talk All-Star weekend. I'd love to send somebody a gift card or something really cool. Maybe we'll hit up Pristine Auction and get some autographed die casts or something. I don't know. We'll figure that part out. But get us to 1,000. We'll take care of y'all. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the race. Let's cash some tickets. Let's win some money on DraftKings this week. And we'll talk to you next time.
Go Watermelon.